I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Earthquakes and typhoons rock the South Pacific. We'll have the latest on relief efforts and how you can help.
No place to call home. We'll find out firsthand what that's like.
And a special meeting for this young girl.
She was without words for the first time.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. It has been a devastating week in the South Pacific. In Samoa yesterday, a massive earthquake that caused a tsunami has killed at least 250 people, and an earthquake in Indonesia has left at least 75 dead.
But the worst may be in the Philippines, still reeling from what has been described as the Philippines' Katrina. A typhoon on Monday pummeled this predominantly Catholic country, leaving hundreds dead and hundreds of thousands homeless. To find out more, earlier in the day, I spoke with Laura Sheehan. She's with Catholic Relief Services in the Philippines' capital of Manila. Laura, thank you so much for joining us here on Currents. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thanks so much for your interest. I'm happy to talk to you.
Well, some people anyway, have called this storm the Hurricane Katrina of the Philippines. Do you think that that is an accurate description?
I do think it's accurate because hundreds of thousands of Filipinos have been affected. And also what I've been noticing here in Manila and surrounding areas is that this is very much an urban crisis. Obviously, there are people farther out in the provinces who have been affected, but I've just seen thousands and thousands of people who live in, what used to be sort of a regular city with, fast food joints. And all of a sudden, they're kind of back in the dark ages because their homes are covered with mud. Some of their homes have been washed away by the flooding caused by the tropical storm. They have no clothes. All their clothes are gone. Everything they have is gone. So, yes, I think it's accurate to say that this is very much like Katrina.
Tell me, since you've been there, what are some of the stories that you have seen or heard of people really trying to survive during this time?
Well, there have really been some heroic rescues. I think we've all heard about the young man who was 18 who saved 30 people from drowning before, unfortunately, succumbing to the floodwaters himself. Today I've been going around Manila and surrounding urban areas, talking to a lot of people with the church volunteers, diocesan directors, and priests who are just getting out there and helping so many people who have lost everything. Their own stories are very powerful and dramatic. One priest named Father Javier was describing how he and another priest, Father Manuel, were in their small little parish house, and the water started rising last Saturday, and they brought all their stuff up to the second floor, and then the water kept rising, and Father Javier said, okay, this isn't a matter of saving our stuff anymore, this is a matter of saving our own lives. They sort of broke through the roof and got up on their roof, and still the waters were bad. And they basically waited to see when the current seemed less strong based on how many sort of items were being washed in the current. And then they swam through the current to a parishioner's house who lived in a building that had 3 stories. And they spent the night there, just stranded, basically. But luckily, thank goodness, they survived.
Well, what exactly has the response of Catholic Relief Services been in the Philippines?
Basically, Catholic Relief Services is feeding thousands and thousands of families right now and trying to get them the basics. So we've got rice, noodles, canned food. Our partner, Caritas, which is part of the Worldwide Catholic Humanitarian Aid Network, is also working with dioceses to give out clothing, children's clothing, underwear, everything you need when all your stuff has been washed away.
Of course, you talked about basic needs and giving folks what they need to survive right now. Is there a faith element to what CRS is doing in the Philippines now?
I think everyone knows that the Philippines is quite Catholic, and it's really been an impressive showing of Catholic solidarity to see Catholics from all over the world, putting their faith into action by praying and contributing money. Catholics all over the world have been helping And again, the church in the Philippines is doing so much, and yet their own churches have been destroyed. I was in one church today that was covered in mud. I was in another church where, if you looked up, it was a chapel actually, if you looked up about 15 feet up, there was the ceiling and the rafters, there was a pew stuck in the rafters. The floodwaters had gotten so high that a pew was up there, and they hadn't been able to get it down, and it was kind of stuck in the rafters. So these are churches that have been incredibly damaged, if not destroyed, and yet the priests are still in there, and the nuns are still reaching out from the churches. People are sleeping in the churches. So there's very much a faith component to the rescue and relief effort.
Wow. Well, just about a minute to go here before we have to wrap up. Tell me quickly how you have personally been affected by what you've seen.
Well, I've been really affected by the fact that when you talk to Filipinos here who have lost so much, who have lost everything, they haven't lost their spirit. They haven't lost hope. They're sad. They're worried. They don't know what's going to come next. But they're not absolutely, miserable and in despair. I think they do have a very strong faith. I was talking to one woman who was saying the rosary as she was on her rooftop, wondering how high the floodwaters would get, wondering if she was going to die, and she was saying the rosary. I talked to another girl whose home was washed away, and she said that one of the things she misses most was her songbook from her choir, and she sang me some beautiful church hymns. So, they've lost everything, but they really have not lost their spirit.
Now, Laura, one more question for you here. How can people help, from New York or from anywhere in the world? How can folks help out those who are suffering right now in the Philippines?
Well, obviously, people's prayers mean a lot to the victims of the flood. If you'd like to contribute, you can go to www.crs.org. If you're outside the United States and you want to contribute to Caritas, the Worldwide Catholic Network, that's another way to help.
Well, that's amazing. And thank you so much, Laura, for talking to us today. We really appreciate it. From Manila, we really appreciate you taking a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And obviously our prayers are with them, and we really hope that the weather gets better so this doesn't get worse.
Absolutely. Laura Sheehan there with Catholic Relief Services talking to us from the Philippines capital of Manila. Thousands of them being helped by Catholic Relief Services. You can also help. CRS.org is the website once again, so log on there and help. And I've actually posted some more information about all of this on our blog about what's happening there and in the rest of the South Pacific, including some more links about what you can do to help. Just head on over to our website. It's currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave. It's right there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
And there is much more current straight ahead, a setback in the effort to ban federal funding for abortion. We'll have that and the rest of the day's headlines when we return.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up a little bit later, a young lady living a life that she never could have imagined.
But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. A Senate subcommittee has rejected a health care amendment to keep federal funding from paying for abortions. The amendment's sponsor, Utah Republican Orrin Hatch, argues women should be required to purchase abortion coverage through supplemental unsubsidized plans. Now, critics have called Hatch's amendment offensive to women. A group of black pastors is drawing criticism for their endorsement of President Obama's health care plan. Meantime, ministers from the historically black Church of God in Christ denomination endorsed the plan last week. But this week, another group of black pastors is crying foul. A statement signed by clergy from several African-American pro-life groups says the Church of God in Christ pastors are merely parroting the president's claim that no abortion funding would be provided in the bill, instead of studying the proposed legislation for themselves. Now, on the other side of the abortion issue, a group of more than 1,100 clergy have come out in support of abortion rights. The ministers endorsed the open letter to religious leaders on abortion as a moral decision. That's the title of the letter. And that letter says that women are moral agents who are capable of determining whether or not abortion is justified in their specific circumstances. It also says there should be more quality reproductive care for the poor. The letter was signed by clergy from the United Methodist Church, the Presbyterian Church USA, and the United Church of Christ, among several other groups.
Well, it isn't only natural disasters causing devastation around the world. Efforts are also being made to combat climate change. As we now hear from Rome Reports, one group of organizations is getting out the message that it's not just about the weather.
Approximately 4.5 million children in the world will die as a result of climate change if nothing is done to stop it, according to the NGO Oxfam International. The organization released the message at the same time as the UN General Assembly meeting in New York. The dialogue in New York is a lead-up to the UN climate change meeting in Copenhagen in December of this year.
Il tempo dell'azione è ora.
The time to act is now. Waiting is always more costly and more ineffective in the long run. That's why we think it's necessary and urgent that an agreement is reached in Copenhagen.
First, all the countries have to make a commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to avoid a global temperature increase of 2 degrees. The US, China, and the European Union emit the most CO2 into the atmosphere. Less gases are emitted in Africa, India, and Latin America.
Devono mettere in campo dei piani nazionali.
Rich countries should push for plans on both the national and international fronts to reduce emissions. They should develop clean energies or the means to reduce carbon emissions. Also, they should finance poorer countries that have less capacity and responsibility to do so.
Oxfam International says financial help to developing countries should be accompanied by a fund aimed at combating the effects produced by climate change. The organization estimates that some $150 million are needed for such a fund.
Non possiamo scegliere fra scuole.
In poor countries, we can't choose between schools, hospitals, or water, and protecting these countries from the effects of climate change like floods or droughts.
This economic initiative won't take off in developing countries unless climate change is not regulated, something that's in the hands of rich countries. It's a message that Benedict XVI touches on in the encyclical Caritas in Veritate. The so-called ecological pope made a calling so that poorer countries don't suffer the consequences of climate change.
In a videotaped message to the UN last week, Pope Benedict urged countries to take responsibility for the environment. While countries are working together to protect the environment, tomorrow night, religions come together. Catholics, Lutherans, and Methodists will gather in Chicago to mark the 10-year anniversary of the Joint Declaration on Justification. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has called that event an historic moment on the journey toward Christian unity. The topic of justification was one of many that pulled Martin Luther from the Catholic Church 500 years ago. But the Declaration found common ground, declaring, quote, "By grace alone, in faith in Christ's saving work, and not because of any merit on our part, we are accepted by God," unquote. And another 10-year anniversary is being marked in Spain as a Catholic TV station celebrates a decade on the air. But it broadcasts from a place that's probably better known for its silence. As we now hear from H2O News, this station in a monastery shows no signs of slowing down.
Settlement TV has just turned 10 years old. On September 15, 1999, the monks at Trinity Monastery, located in Mucomiel, Alicante, Spain, responding to our own mission and to John Paul II's appeal to proclaim the name of Jesus from the rooftops, accepted the task of creating a culturally oriented, non-profit Catholic television channel for the Alicante metropolitan area. It is a project of communion that takes on as its fundamental task the fulfillment of the first monk's mission, while using the newest technology. Settlement is a voice that God produces and amplifies within the silence of a monastery. It is the new and peculiar parchment with which we try to fulfill this mission. Our programs are geared towards the well-being of the human person. Settlement is another door into the monastery, another way of sharing with others what God has given us to live by. On the eve of June 24, 2005, Settlement began emitting online, live from the monastery. Throughout the past 10 years, the Lord, like a good carpenter, has been fitting Settlement together. the soul and work of many people who come from many different charismas within the church, wonderfully enriching the ecclesial density of our work. We give thanks to God for each and every one of our 87,600 hours of mission in these past 10 years, and for the countless hours dedicated to preparation, the hours of prayer and of generous hard work of so many people.
And that is another Catholic station that's part of the new evangelization. Hopefully, Currents will be celebrating 10 years from now.
That's right, that's right. We'll look forward to it. We'll start planning the party right now. Stay tuned, much more Currents coming up straight ahead.
Coming up, without a home, but with plenty of hope.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, how one little girl made a wish and it came true.
But first, what happens when you have no place to call home? By one count, there are more than 37,000 New Yorkers living in shelters, with almost half of them children. Even organizations like Catholic Charities are feeling the pinch. According to the group's national president, it is so bad that some of its volunteers have been forced to become clients.
And now most of us can't even imagine what it's like to be homeless. But reporter Patrick Ottman in Seattle decided to find out for himself.
About 70 people live in this homeless camp. Residents say city shelters too often don't have enough room, and city streets are too dangerous.
This camp has existed in various locations for over a year. The last time I came and spoke with residents here, they invited me to come and actually live here and experience homelessness through their eyes.
So I'm going back to live in the camp for 2 days. Resident Terry Bailey shows me around.
This is our common area out here.
After losing a job driving trucks, Bailey came with his wife and 2 sons to find work in Seattle. Life here is far from easy, he says, but as good as it gets when you don't have a home.
We can live in a community of people that are like, in the same situation as we are and still sleep at night. That's the biggest thing, I'll tell you, is safety at night. You just don't know what that street has to offer.
Many people living here say they prefer life in this camp to a shelter because they can come and go as they please. They can look for work during the day and know that their things are safe here, which makes finding a job much easier. I'm finding the most difficult thing in this camp right now is setting up my tent, actually, which is not as easy as it looks.
The camp has rules. No drugs or alcohol, but its future is in doubt. Signs posted around the camp tell residents they are trespassing. The constant moves, residents say, make a hard life even more so.
And when you get something established and set up, you don't want to find out 30 days to 90 days later that you have to move. And that's what we have to deal with.
People say they ended up here because of the bad economy and bad luck. Joshua and Amanda Stanton hope to get a roof over their heads before their first baby is born.
I'm 5.5 months. I'm due in January. I've got moments that I'm scared because, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if something's going to happen. And
at dark, residents go back to their tents for the night.
So everyone in the camp is going to bed. I'm actually in my tent, and you can hear trains going by, cars going by, so I just don't think I'm going to sleep that well tonight.
At dawn, the camp stirs. I prepare to leave, but it's been just a taste of what the residents face every day.
You know in the back of your mind you have a home to go to when you leave here. When I walk out that gate, this is the only place I have to come back to. And it makes a serious change in how you feel.
As I go, I'm already thinking about the hot shower, real bed, and decent cup of coffee waiting for me. For the people here, there are none of those luxuries. Only another day of hoping for something better.
Patrick Ottman reporting there, and just such a tough life, and definitely someone who is, I guess, very brave in a lot of ways to go out there and actually do that and experience what it's like to be a homeless person for just a day?
You know, two things. When I was in college, I did this thing called FOP, First Year Outdoor Program, where we lived basically in tents for a week. We traveled up the Appalachian Trail, and we didn't even actually have tents. It was just under tarps. No showers, no mirrors, nothing like that. We sort of carried our own food. So I can't only, you know, I can kind of relate to what he had to deal with and what they have to deal with, but not obviously entirely, because we went back into our dorm rooms afterwards. But the other thing is, my mom has always been a big advocate of the homeless, and she actually helped found and start the first homeless shelter for women in Boston called Rosie's Place. And she bought the building for them so they wouldn't have to pay rent, so they wouldn't get kicked out, because a lot of nonprofits that try to help people who are homeless end up being subjected to economic factors themselves, even if they're trying to do good work. So I'm sure there are other people who've done the same here in New York.
Absolutely, and I know your mom is also a physician.
She is. And
so I bet she could really feel for the folks who are there who are expecting the child also. That's got to be really tough with no prenatal care whatsoever.
Nope.
So. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up straight ahead.
Coming up, a young girl rescued from abortion gets her wish.
Finally, tomorrow begins Respect Life Month, and issues like abortion and end-of-life care are a major part of the national debate on health reform.
That's right, as we've heard many, many times. And in the weeks ahead, we'll actually be bringing you some stories of people making their voices heard on these issues. But actually, we want to get a head start tonight. Before 7-year-old Emma Watson was even born, she wasn't even given much of a chance to live.
But after multiple open heart surgeries, Emma continues to defy the odds. And as we hear from Rome Reports, she was recently able to make a very special trip, courtesy of the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
At first glance, Emma Watson looks like the average 7-year-old. She has the curiosity and laughter of any other child her age, and she holds her mom's hands with the same innocence of most kids. But the story of Emma's life is anything but ordinary. She was born with half a heart. In her young life, she's already had 5 open heart surgeries.
All of the surgeries that she will have, she has likely already had, and the next thing would be a heart transplant somewhere down the line if that's available at that time.
Patty and John Watson are Emma's adoptive parents. They traveled to Rome with her to see her live out her special wish of meeting the Pope.
She just looked at him in a way that I've never seen her look before. She was without words for the first time.
I didn't think we were gonna be that close.
But Emma wouldn't have grown up with the love and care of the Watsons if it wasn't for the last-minute courage of her birth mother.
Her birth mother had wanted to have an abortion and decided to back out of that and decided to give her life, and now she's with our family and has been a huge blessing to our family.
The Watsons leave Rome with a very special moment, one they call breathtaking, and that gave them a sense of awe. Emma's mom says her condition will continue to require special attention, but it's evident that she already has 2 of the most important things a 7-year-old could ask for: love of a family and the gift of life.
Such an amazing little girl.
Yeah, and you know, and really is a little girl. She obviously has these physical problems that are being addressed, but so nice that she was able to have her wish granted.
That's absolutely right. You know, the Make-A-Wish Foundation does a lot of really good work, and of course this is no different. They were, you know, and getting to meet them, just seeing the Pope touching the face of the little girl. I mean, it almost brought me to tears there. That's just such a great picture.
Yeah, you just want that to be the healing touch, and just have everything go away, and just have all of her problems with her heart go away. And perhaps they may. You never know.
They could. They very well could. And you know, the beginning of that piece, you know, you look at her and it's like she's just a normal little girl, and then you kind of notice that there's this scar there from the surgeries.
Sure.
And maybe she's not exactly like every other little girl, but she's got life, and she's got parents now who love her, adoptive parents who love her. So she's got what she needs. That's it for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up tomorrow, shops, a food court, and an ultrasound? Sounds a little weird, but that's what you'll find at one local mall.
Oh, plus a Brooklyn author tells us about a side of St. Francis of Assisi that you may not have heard. We'll have those stories and more tomorrow on Currents.
But in the meantime, remember you can always catch us online. Head on over to currentsny.net, and there you can see clips of the show. Check out our blog too. It's called Riding the Wave.
And we also have a new Facebook fan page with, at last check, had 634 fans, which is great. And we're constantly updating that with all new kinds of stuff, like our new sponsors. Just log on to Facebook and search for Currents, or go to facebook.com/currentsny.
That's a brand new thing there.
Yeah, I did that last night. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maximin.
She's busy. And I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.